So, hi, welcome to my interview here. Grant Stain here, interviewing a guy who has been on a fascinating journey, fascinating entrepreneurial journey. Today, I've got with me Rob Pendleton from Pendleton Global. Welcome, Rob, and thanks for joining me here today on this, what should we call it, interview, webinar, something along those lines.
Any of the above. Any of the above.
Any of the above. So Rob and I met a few months ago, and we've been doing a bit of work together over the last few months. And as part of my interview series that I'm putting together for grantstain.com, I've asked him to join me so I can dig a bit deeper into his background, find out a little bit more about what makes him tick, with the aim of helping budding entrepreneurs, people out there thinking of starting their own business, particularly if you're in the coaching industry, business coaching industry. Rob's got a whole lot of experience in that, and I'm sure you're going to find it very, very insightful. So as I say, Rob, thanks for joining me. And we are in the middle of lockdown in the UK as I record this. I'm sure you'll be watching it when all that is past, but that's where we are right now. Hence, we're not in the office doing this as we would prefer to, but lockdown 2 for us now, Rob. How are you finding the lockdown, by the way? How are you coping with working from home?
Yeah, well, I mean, actually, to be honest, it's pretty refreshing. I'm lucky enough to live down in Cornwall, and so there are much worse places to be locked down. I get to go for a nice little wander across the golf course to the cliffs and look down at the sea most days. So that's it's pretty nice being able to do business like this and not have to do so much travel around the country for client meetings and so on and so forth.
So the interview's got off to a pretty bad start because I'm right in the middle of the country. I'm nowhere near the sea. Now I'm already jealous. But it's a beautiful part of the world.
You've got great food options, and I'm sure you can wander some lovely canals near you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the canals of Birmingham. So what I'd like to start with, just to give people a little bit of background, is just to introduce yourself and your business, just so people can understand what Pendleton Global is all about.
Sure. Okay. Well, I think it's probably a nice place to start to tell people how you and I met. So we actually met at the National Business Growth Show, and business growth is what Pendleton Global is all about. And I was one of the keynote speakers at the National Business Growth Show this year, literally days before the first lockdown. And so all of the time we've known each other, we've been coping with these new things. But it was a great thing to come out of actually making the effort to bring my team up to the show, to sort of host a booth there and speak at the conference, because obviously meeting you and us being able to start working together and build a connection has been great. So, I mean, talking first very briefly about the company, Pendleton are a guaranteed business growth company, and we have 2 main service products. The first is for business owners, and that's a program, a 20-module program that's equivalent, I guess you would call it, to an MBA for small business owners focused on growth, and it teaches them everything they need to know and do to make their business grow. And the second service product that we have is a course, a licensed practitioner program, which teaches business coaches, whether they're new business coaches just looking to transition out of roles in big business or as entrepreneurs or whatever they've been doing previously, into business coaching, or even established business coaches who want to improve the value that they can offer their clients, deliver more for less time, for more money, that sort of thing. We've created a program that's a best-in-class program offered all across the UK. And the recent development that I was just going to flag for you, I think you may have spotted this, Grant, but we've literally just opened up in India as well. So we've got Pendleton coaches who I'm interviewing each day, building the team over in India. So we're now finally living on our promise that I made many years ago when I started the company of becoming Pendleton Global. It seemed grand, but there's a nice little story to why it's Pendleton Global. And that's because in the UK, if you want to say that you're national, you have to have operations across, I think, at least 3 counties. If you want to say that you're international, you have to have operations in multiple countries. But nobody thought hard enough to restrict the word global. And I thought that was quite entertaining, and it was really super ambitious. So when I started Pendleton Global, I called it that simply because you could. And there was an aspiration that at some stage I was going to create this global wave of change and growth with as the vision for our company. And this year, not entirely thanks to lockdown, but during lockdown, I've had the time and space to push that out into the world, the wider world, and start taking on coaches overseas as well. So that's probably enough for an intro to Pendleton. Intro to me. Well, I am a 42-year-old chief exec and founder of a startup business in the consulting world. I live in Cornwall. I've got 2 boys. We hang out by the sea. We love going surfing and rock climbing, and I'm a coach for the Wadebridge Camels rugby team, the under 13s team that my boy represents. So yeah, that's me in a summary nutshell.
Awesome. I'd say I didn't know that story about global, and do you know what? That's, there's quite a few entrepreneurs that sort of talk about setting your goals high and go big or go home kind of scenario.
Nothing short of world domination, Grant.
That's it. You've made it happen. Already an international. You are an international business now. Let's face it. We've got the Indian side of things going, and I'm sure there'll be many more.
I'm not going back to downgrade. We're not going to be just Pendleton International. I need more around the world, and then I can be truly global.
Stay on global.
Interesting. I've been having a discussion today with a guy in Kathmandu who's interested in.
Is that actually a place? Is that actually a place?
It certainly is. It is. It's the capital of Nepal, and he's interested in starting the first Pendleton franchise in Nepal. So that could be an interesting one.
That is awesome. It's one of those places, Kathmandu, where I'm always like, it's a bit like Timbuktu. Is it one of those places that is real?
Timbuktu is real as well.
It is. Right. I didn't think it was for yours. Oh dear. So what I'd like to do, if you'll allow me, is obviously you've been an entrepreneur now for how many years have you been sort of sailing your own ship?
I started my business in 2009, so it's 11 years. Though that's probably slightly disingenuous because the first year I hedged my bets a bit. I was on sabbatical from the consulting firm that I worked for at that stage. And essentially, I gave myself a year's sabbatical with an agreement that if I made it, then I could stick with it. But if I didn't make it, I could crawl back with my tail between my legs. But,
hedge your bets.
So 2010 was the year we really started, and my first business, which I built and later sold, was a luxury adventure travel business. Which I built a community online. We determined what we felt were the 50 best luxury adventure holidays in the world. And then we put together a guidebook, a coffee table style book to those 50 best luxury adventure holidays in the world, which you can still get on Amazon. Though it does have, I made a terrible business error. I put 2012 on the cover because it was 2011 when we released it, and I thought that's great. It will seem really new, and obviously every year since I've regretted that decision. But yeah, we got the guide to the 50 best luxury adventures in the world, and you could buy each of those through My Adventure Temples brand. But I sold that one on to a Scottish travel company who I've been partnering with a few years later, and moved in some other businesses, and then ultimately having learned how to build businesses of my own, I thought match that back with my previous career, which had been with big business consulting and building business models, bring all these ones together into creating the business water wheel and Pendleton's guaranteed business growth product.
Yeah, I remember when we first met, and I kind of, asked you a few questions about your background, and one of the things that fascinated me is you obviously spent a lot of time in your early career as a bit of a high flyer in the corporate world.
Yeah.
And obviously the difference between the corporate world and lifestyle and running your own business is vast. What motivated you to go from what I imagine was a very sort of well-paid job to doing your own thing?
Six figures to zero to minus figures to so on and so forth. Yeah, it's a real sort of hero to zero journey, and then back again. Hopefully, I like to think now that once you create something that can generate 6-figure months instead of 6-figure years, you've really made it successful, and that's I think that's the objective, is trying to go. The big reason to leave the corporate world is that you're always limited essentially by your own time and the value that other people place on you. Where if you take the step to starting your own business and make that break, then you don't need to be limited by either of those things. You can create a business which generates the money for you. And part of what I wanted to do with the water wheel model was create something that showed people how to achieve that passive income style from your business, so that it doesn't just become essentially giving yourself a job, because that's the worst thing you can do in starting a business. It's got to be a functional entity in its own right. But once you create something scalable, you're no longer limited by the value that other people place on you and your time. It's whether you've created something that enough people want that works. So that's probably why I set about doing it. I also felt that after 10 years or so, I worked across 17 different countries in my time in consulting. I managed massive transformation projects of up to $100 million, 3 billion in downstream revenue impacted, teams of 250 plus people across 3 continents simultaneously, and for clients that everyone had heard of, like Microsoft, Tesco, Unilever, Novartis, DHL, any number, British government, and so on. And having done all of those different ones, I just started to feel. Well, actually, there's a side story that I'll just briefly jump into. So alongside doing that, I'd started scuba diving and became a scuba diving instructor. And I started teaching evenings and weekends at Shadwell Pool in East London, and then weekends out at the sort of Gildenberg Water in near Peterborough. And I've dived all over the world, but that was where I did most of my teaching. And you've never seen the difference as starkly the thank you that you get from somebody who you interact with. And with diving, you go for a dive for the first time, and a bit of you thinks you're going to have fun, and another bit of you thinks you're going to die. And so when you successfully take somebody on that journey into a new space underwater for the first time, and they come back and they've had fun, and they didn't feel like it was horrific, you get such a strong thank you. And when I sat there comparing that to the thank you I got from a director who I'd just saved a few million quid for his firm, it's sort of like, thanks very much. Should we pop and get a sandwich? And and just like, oh, is that then? That's all the passion, the motivation that you get from it. And I realized that perhaps for me, in the world of small business, where it really is the life that you're changing, and whether that was booking somebody a life-changing honeymoon or creating them. My second business was called Adventure Butlers, and it was a concierge service for activities and experiences based from luxury cottages in the southwest mostly. It's a funny story on there. Is that I won Entrepreneur of the Year, Southwest Entrepreneur of the Year for that one in 2012. But the business itself never made me any money, which was an amusing twist. So one of these ones where you win the award for the one that was the least successful that you did. But, so I just realized that the amount of passion that I was experiencing helping smaller business owners part-time or helping people with new experiences like diving was order of magnitude better and more exciting and interesting than I was getting as the sort of the thank yous and the passion from the people who I was serving in the bigger business world. So I just thought it was the right thing to do to make that steady switch. And ultimately, I think I always knew that I'd probably end up coming back to consulting and starting something like what I've started here. But I don't think you're very credible in the world of business coaching for small business if you've not run and sold and sort of successfully achieved something with businesses of your own. I think there's far too many people who their business coaching journey is literally just, I decided that other people had paid me lots of money, so I want you to too. And I just don't think that works as well as I've been there and I've done it in the big business world. I've been there and I've done it in the small business world. And now I want to help you. Felt like a more powerful proposition. And so why would you trust a program, a course to improve your business from somebody who hasn't successfully done that? Didn't make sense to me. So I wanted to try something. And if I had to pick an industry that was closest to my own passions, travel and adventures has always been my big thing. So I've jumped out of planes, I've dived under the ocean, I've jumped off bridges with and without a bungee rope. With is better. I can.
Yeah, I bet.
Impact. You feel like you're getting knocked out. But I've had adventures all over the world, and I've been lucky enough as a boy from a council estate in Cornwall, and I've been able to travel to 107 countries so far in my life. And
not that you're counting.
Oh, absolutely! You have your number, Grant. Yeah, that's the magic number that I can definitely remember. You know, you really that. And part of why I get so excited about having been to 107 countries is because there's probably, well, we don't know how many countries there are in the world. It changes continuously depending on which country you interview about it. But there's definitely about 200. So it means that I'm only just about halfway there. And at 42, I like to think that I'm only just about halfway there as well. So I'm hoping that when we're allowed back out and lockdown is done, I can get back out there and start traveling some more and see if I can see the other half that I haven't made yet.
I'm with you on that one. I'm missing the traveling already. It's a killer, isn't it, not being able to get out there. So one thing I just want to go back to, just based on what you said there, which I think is really, really key. When you talk about sort of gratitude and in terms of when you deal with a small business owner, when you're helping a small business owner, you can really see the difference that you're making. And you know, I always talk about, you know, because I'm obviously in the small business space as well, and you know, where you become friends with your you know, your customers because you're entrepreneurial.
Start to really matter to you because what you're doing, you're not making a few quid for them really. What you're doing is you're putting their children through university without debt. You're allowing their partner to retire early. You're allowing them to have an extra holiday every year, because one of the gifts that my course is there to give to business owners is not just the cash, it's the time. Because most business owners, their fundamental problem is that they've created worlds in which they are so intrinsic that they're vital to every area of their business that they don't have time for life anymore, and that's a tragedy, and it also massively decreases the value of your business if you get yourself into that position, because if you're working 70 hours a week, I guarantee you that there are four main roles that a business leader takes up in life. So number one, the role that they should be doing is as a leader of the business. Number two is as a manager. Number three is as an expert, and number four is an administrator. And you tend to find that business owners work far more as manager, expert, and administrator than they do as leader of the business. And there's all kinds of reasons they get tracked into that. Or people don't do it to my standards, or it's hard to explain to them how to keep doing it, and oh, I've got such a churn of staff, and this, that, and the other. But those are the sorts of problems that when you've solved them, suddenly not only do you have a business, but you have a life. You have your life back. And that's the gift that my course essentially gives to business owners, and that's why I absolutely love doing it.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think going back to your story of, when you're working for, your big firm and your boss is just another cog in the wheel, and you save that firm, $1 million for something you do, and all your boss cares about is, whether he's going to get home for his dinner or not.
I'll tell you a nice story about that fits with that. Actually, it still irks me and amuses me in equal measure. So I did a piece of work when I was actually a university student, and this was probably one of the things that set me on that path to the high flyer type career. In the final summer of university, I did an internship program, or a work placement, I guess is probably a better description, with an insurance company. And I went in there and I noticed while I was there that they had their rate books, how they rate the risk levels, were all in Excel. They had their staff filling in an Excel series of boxes to say how to capture the data from each of the customers. And then they had in Excel as well printed out rate books that they had sort of 400-page books that they had to leaf through to say how many risk points people get to be able to quote. And I just went, with my basic knowledge of spreadsheets, why don't they link all of these up? And then, and what was genuinely happening in this business was they would interview you on the phone, they would note down your answers, they would compare your answers to the rate book, they would then look up how many risk points that got, and then phone you back the next day with, this is how much your premium is going to be. 24-hour turnaround. And now, if you want insurance, you don't want to get a price tomorrow. You want to know what the price is straight away and buy it. And so I spoke to them about this and said, should I link the spreadsheets for you? And they said, oh, can you do that? I said, yeah, sure. And so I started working in the evenings initially, and I put together and showed them how it would work, basically. But I did all of that all across the course of just a few weeks of work. And I saved them. So not only did I generate essentially millions of pounds worth of business, because they weren't selling very much because they couldn't auto quote. But they just asked Accenture, one of the big management consulting firms, to come in and do a £100,000+ project to allow them to auto quote. And me, as the kid from university, came in and knocked up a bit of Excel spreadsheet and rendered all of that entirely pointless. And the thank you I got was I was there going, oh, I've just saved them 100,000 quid. I've just allowed them to generate an extra X million in revenue each year because they can sell straight away. And they just told me, we're going to find you a nice little bonus. And I was like, oh, this is great. This is going to set me up for the next year. What are we going to get? And there's me hoping for, £1,000, maybe £2,000, or could it be £10,000? It's only 10% of what I saved them. Surely there's going to be this. Do you know what I got?
Go on.
Bottle of cheap Prosecco from the supermarket.
Classic.
And so
that is classic.
I was like,
I can imagine. Do you want? I've got a little challenge for you, Rob.
It's better than that, Grant. I didn't drink white wine at the time, so I got something.
Can you just quickly show us the face that you gave them as they handed the prosecco over.
Well, listen, the face would have been a, oh, thanks very much, that's really lovely. I'm really proud to have done this great job for you.
What a polite young man.
You know.
Oh, it is criminal, isn't it? I mean, that kind of sums it up, though, doesn't it? That and in a way, it's that attitude that you were trying to get away from when you went it alone.
Yeah, and when you help a business owner to the tune of 100,000 quid, to them it genuinely is life changing. I mean, you get people who, I've had the odd client who genuinely has cried with happiness at what we've been able to do to their business. And when you've got a gruff old sort of, business codger who's used to doing the Alan Sugar thing and so on and so forth, and he literally sits in front of you with tears in his eyes because he's able to retire, he's able to fund all of his dreams, he's able to buy his boat, he's able to this, that, and the other. That's when you've really made it in consulting, because that's the sort of experience that you get into business coaching for. That's
awesome. That is. Now, I'd like to take the next question in a slightly different direction, because in my world, I talk about I work in the entrepreneurial universe, if you like, and a lot of that is about people starting their own business.
Yeah.
Now we've touched on your motivation to start your own business, and in a way, you gave yourself a little bit of an insurance policy.
I did. Yeah.
What advice would you give to somebody that's thinking of starting their own business but hasn't necessarily got that plan B? Because it's a difficult decision, isn't it, to take the plunge, particularly in a pandemic environment like we are now.
So I think I'll answer the question in at least two ways. He said non-committally. He might have another one. So I think the first thing is, when people consider whether they should or shouldn't start a business, they spend 90+% of their time focused on the cost of taking that action. And they spend almost none of their time considering the realities of the cost to themselves, very real costs of inaction. And what's more, if you think on you're on, I know it's a horrible expression, but if you think about lying on your deathbed, thinking back at your life, if you spent all of that time in the corporate world and each year you were thinking, oh, next year I might start my business, or next year I might start my business, or maybe next year, maybe now's a bad time because of the pandemic, maybe, deathbed regrets are worth more than any amount of money that you can possibly make in a salaried job. You can't live with yourself feeling like a failure because you never tried. So I think the cost of inaction, and then the second part of the cost of inaction is that when you make your business work, you make far better money than you do in any salaried job. Right up to being chief exec of a medium-sized firm. Okay, yeah, I think probably there are some CEO jobs in the world's biggest firms that, but still the comparator there is versus Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates and so on. So you always make more money if you can make it work yourself rather than working for someone else. So there is a huge cost to inaction there as well. So that's one aspect of it. The other side is about your level of risk appetite, and starting and running a business isn't for every single person out there, and actually it is very important to consider how you go into the business that you want to start. So I think there's two sides to it that I would look at. If you don't have a clear plan for how you want to start your business, but you're really desperate to start a business, there's a great alternative out there, which is franchising. So to me, those people who especially those who have looked at, oh, I've been thinking about this for a number of years, but I just don't know how to get it off the ground. Don't waste your time trying to reinvent a wheel. Buy the book on how to build the business, buy the support, buy the training, and just get that franchise background behind you to help you do it. And take our field or your field of you with the digital marketing, me with business coaching. In either of those fields, if somebody were to try and start their own business, and they're a relatively risk averse person, they've been wondering whether to do it for a number of years, and they're not sure how to do it. If they go in and they make all of those rookie mistakes because they don't want to learn from you or me having done it, they want to just try, they'll end up spending far more than they ever would on the price of the franchise. Otherwise, that franchise wouldn't exist.
And taking a lot longer.
And that's the other big thing, is the amount of time it takes for you to get a business off the ground. Now, I obviously built this, so in some respects, I could have gone and got the franchise and did that. And at one stage, I actively considered that. But I think what you have to make an assessment when you're deciding whether there is the right franchise out there for you or not is, do you passionately believe in what they've created? And if you can see it working and you passionately believe in it and you don't think, hey, I could do better than that, then join it, buy it, do it. And that's your route into your business. And if you do think you can do better, go prove it, Absolutely. If there's somebody who's got a better version of this out in their head than me, and they've got 2-3 years to build it, and they won't be earning during that time, then they should go do it, because actually then they'll have that level above. They'll be the franchisor, not the franchisee, and so that's absolutely fine too. So risk profiling is the second point. So think of the cost of inaction and really get serious about that, because if you genuinely sit there all your life and you end up dying never having done it, you'll feel terrible. So do act, but do plan your risk profile with it, and look at. So I hedge my bets a bit by having the sabbatical. Some of the people who come on board with my scheme, the Pendleton Partners scheme, they do a mixture of small business coaching with me and contracting work with other firms, and they tend to, over time, and that just gives them an ease out of the work that they're currently doing. They can train in how to do this while they're delivering a project and earning money. That's reasonably smart. I've got no problem whatever with people taking a relatively risk-averse strategy into the business, because the high risk, I'm just going to spend loads of money on absolutely everything, give me all the bells and whistles from minute one, that doesn't work either. So the right balance is, look at the risk appetite you've got, get the good advice that you need, but do take action.
No, sound advice that is, and it's it's great the way that you've articulated that, because there's no one size fits all in business, and you do have to make sensible decisions. But whichever way you do it, if you've got that entrepreneurial itch, the decision is the thing you have to do, because the deathbed analogy, you hear that often, and it's just the reason you hear it often. It's so true. It's so easy to watch the years go by, thinking I'll do it next year. One of my favorite sayings, I can't remember who I heard it from now. A guy who said, don't live on someday I'll start a business. And it always keeps going, and it's one of my favorite sayings, that is, because I hear it so often. I'm sure you do too, in your line of work. Someday, I'm really interested in starting that business or that or joining that franchise or whatever it might be. But I just need a bit of time to think about it, and I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
And they just never do, and those people are just living on someday I'll.
Yeah. Well, I think, I mean, never do is a bit too strong. You do get some who eventually the right combination just pushes them over the edge into, oh, I've got to do this now.
Mm.
But certainly, I mean, actually, I mean, in business coaching terms, creating a sense of urgency about action is a large part of what a business coach is there to do, because the funny part is, you know, we talk about people refusing to take action and not starting their businesses. They're almost better off in some cases than the business owners who start their business and then have the, oh, someday I'll tune it up and write our processes so that I don't have to work. Someday I'll, you know. So the someday I'ls don't necessarily change.
Good point.
You know, so I think the important part there is about whether you you know, do you want to be an island? Do you want to be a person who has no association with others, or do you want to be part of a community? And you know, that reminds me of a decision that we made as a country a few years ago. But there we go.
We're not allowed to mention the B word.
but my view in general is that being part of a community of experts and having other people to drive you forwards in business, because business ownership and business leadership is very lonely. You don't think it is because, oh, I've got staff around me, or I've got other people, but it's very lonely because you're the decision maker, and ultimately when people make mistakes, it's your money they're making mistakes with, and you know, you've got to show them that you care enough about them to let them make those mistakes, and you know, but it's hard. It's hard, and the decision-making autonomy is very lonely. And so part of why I was very keen to make sure that with what I created, I offered consultancy used to annoy me in the way that it was delivered, because if you're a business owner, say I come along to your business, Grant, and I say, hey, I'd like to do a program with you, and it's going to improve your business. You go, sounds great. Is there a fee? I go, yeah, there's a fee. And hey, it's a big fee. You go, great. Well, I suppose I do have the money, but and I do want the results. So yeah, I'm open to that. But what if it doesn't work? Oh, well, that's your problem.
Yeah.
Now, how's that fair? You know, if I buy a car and it doesn't work, I've got a warranty. You know, if I buy something from a shop and it's off, I take it back. But if I buy some high-priced consultancy at an even bigger fee than either of those things and it doesn't work, well, my tough, right? That doesn't make sense to me. So what I did instead was I created a guaranteed business growth firm. And that was important to me because I think you've got to stand by the quality of your work. And so our watchword with Pendleton was basically, we only make money when you do too. And if one of our consulting programs ever worked its way through a business, now we've never had to pay out on the guarantee yet because we are just successful, and it's important. You know, we wouldn't want to be one of these firms that the guarantee is paid out half the time, because that means we're not very good at doing what we do. But the guarantee has to be there, because if I say I'm going to charge you 12 grand or 36 grand for a year's worth of consultancy with us, whatever size of business you might be, I want you to know that at the very least we're going to be targeting 4 times that in terms of the growth. 4x is where I sort of set the benchmark that that's what we want to achieve. And if something terrible happened and we ended up only making you 5 grand or something, every penny that we haven't earned, I'm paying you back, because my advice didn't work. You know, and that's my product and that's my guarantee. And so I think it's quite important. And so for people who are out there considering starting businesses, or business owners who run businesses, there are lots of industries where the right guarantee can make a massive difference to customers and their level of satisfaction and assurance with you. And you find that you can convert more. And a good example of that might be I don't know, a builder that we worked with, who his guarantee to every customer is he would treat their home with the respect as if it was his mother's. Right? And that was his guarantee, that every time I come through the door, I will take my shoes off, or I'll put my overshoes on, you know, because I don't walk on mum's carpets. I know, I respect that. And if I do some drilling in a room, I don't leave the dust around that's going to blow around and mean she's got to do a hoovering again. You know, I'm going to clean everything up as if it's I'm doing it for my mum. And that was his guarantee. And as soon as he introduced that guarantee, his conversion ratios for the quotes that he was making went from around 50 to 60% to between 70 and 80% in one hit.
That's awesome.
And he always did all of those things, but because he didn't have the guarantee,
yeah,
it didn't work. So I think being prepared to, if you're going to start a business, work out what it is your customers really want most, and be prepared to stand by that you're going to give it to them. So awesome. I think that's quite an important thing about business ethics for me.
So sorry about that, guys. Just had a little, this is the benefit of working from home, and the doorbell rang halfway through. Oh, lockdown! I tell you what, I can't wait for that to pass. But anyway, we're it's just about time to wrap this one up, actually, and it's been an absolutely fascinating chat with Rob. And just in terms of people reaching out to you, Rob, how do people get hold of you if they want to find out more about Pendleton and what you're up to?
So I think we've sort of done a good job of getting ourselves across every channel that you can conceive of. Mm-hmm. But in general, so there's two main sources, I guess. If you're a prospective business coach, if you like the idea of generating incomes of big six figures, typically we get people to around 200,000 a year, and working with a great degree of autonomy, but with the guidance and support of a functioning network. Best place for you to go to sort of look at that initially would be pendletonpartners.com, or alternatively, there's another route that would be quite useful for people if they want to have a bit more detailed look at the sort of advice that we give, is to jump on either LinkedIn or Facebook and search on Pendleton Global. And you can start to see, I put out 2 videos every week so there's a ton of video content there that will basically tell them some of the questions that we get in from business owners, and how we've addressed those questions for other clients within our network. And we put videos out every week. So if people want to see a little bit more about that and see if maybe some of the ways that we do business coaching might be for them, then have a look on our Facebook and LinkedIn sites as well. And if you're a business owner, the original site, pendletonglobal.com, gives you a full summary of how the model works, and the 4 phases of the model: know, grow, flow, and overflow. It's about knowing the strengths and weaknesses of your business, growing the customer base and the profits, improving the efficient flow of the business from a perspective of practice and the people within your business, and then achieving overflow, which is about generating a reliable, steady income, whether you're working in that business or not. So a passive income over time, getting a really strong valuation for your business, and growing it at an enterprise level. So if that sounds like the sort of thing that could be useful for you, if you need your time back, that's what the course is there to achieve, and to help you to grow and get more customers. So pendletonglobal.com for that. And again, I'd also reference the Facebook and LinkedIn videos, whichever one is your preferred social media platform of choice. We'll be on there somewhere, but Facebook and LinkedIn we spend the most time on. So you can see some of our other coaches there. Look one up in your area, and I mean, at the moment we can't see each other face to face anyway. So if whichever one, whether it's me or one of the other coaches that ends up working with you and taking you through the program. It's 20 modules that's guaranteed to grow your business. So if that sounds of interest, have a check out the free videos online, and yeah, come and talk to us.
Awesome. Brilliant, and I can certainly vouch for Rob's system. I've been working with him now since March, and it really is a fantastic system, and the content is awesome, both in the quality and the delivery. So really recommend you checking that out, and I'll be popping some more of that stuff on my own Facebook feed. So if you check out grantstein.com and on my Instagram as well, grantstein.com on Instagram, you'll find plenty more. So it's been an absolute pleasure, Rob. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to do this, and I wish you every success with Pendleton Global and the partnership program, and waiting to see some big things in all parts of the world, really living up to that global strategy in the years to come. Thanks a lot, mate.
Thank you.